Hi, and happy Thursday to all of you that are on the endless summer. I never had that kind of luck, but you do. Anyway, welcome to summer reading again, and today we are going to spend some time talking about and then reading about heroes. That's this week's theme is the hero's journey. And it occurred to me that there's probably a good deal about the hero's journey you don't know. I'm not going to bore you with a whole lot of it. But think about, who is your favorite hero? You like Batman? Superman? I can't think of, the Green Lantern. There's a million of them. Who's your favorite and why do you like them? Did you know that years ago a man named Joseph Campbell, who was a mythologist, he studied myths from all over the world in all ages, he came up with this fact. He said in all the myths and all the stories, the hero story is the same. It has the same progression. It starts in this one place and it ends up at the other. And people went, oh, that's not so. And then they got to looking at it, and it turns out that it's quite true. Let's talk about what are the steps in a hero's journey. And you will find when we go over a very specific movie that might be a favorite of yours that what I'm saying here is true. Heroes start out in the ordinary world, okay? They're just like everybody else. They're humble. They're not looking for any adventure. And then something happens that calls them to adventure. A situation occurs. There's a mishap, an accident. You never know what. And at first, your hero goes, oh, no way. I can't do that. Nah, he's really, really reluctant to get involved in whatever it is somebody's trying to pull him into. And eventually, when he starts in, he meets someone along the way who's going to help him. He's going to guide him. He's going to be either a person of wisdom or strength or skill, but he'll have a mentor, okay? And eventually, the hero will cross into, on his journey, the threshold of whatever his adventure is going to be, or her adventure, okay? The hero invariably faces, early on, tests, allies, and enemies. He's got to come to grips with who's a friend, who's an enemy, how do I do that? And the mentor helps him with that, okay? Now, all of these are, 1 through 4 is the departure, where the hero begins to get into his journey, okay? So it's staying real well. Once he crosses the threshold, he is initiated into his journey. Things are happening. He approaches the innermost cave. Sometimes this is called into the belly of the beast, okay? This is where he's in now for good or bad, whatever happens. Then we have the ordeal, where something has to end and our hero is kind of reborn into something different. He's not the same. There is always, after that, a reward. Oh, that goes here. Seizing the force, where he grabs on to whatever it is that's going to change him, and he's in all the way. He's had faced lots of tests and trials, and he's good. Number 10, he is on his way back to the ordinary world. But when he gets back, the hero is never the same once he's gone through his journey. On 11, they call it the resurrection. He's a changed person because of what happened to him. And then he returns with what they call the elixir, or some kind of something he's gotten on this journey that is good for the world he's returning to, okay? And you're like, I never heard any of this stuff. Well, I know you've never heard of it, but It's true. We're going to take a look at Star Wars, the 4th episode. Luke, Han, Layla, the whole group. You have to excuse me. I take medicine that makes my mouth dry. And my lips stick together and I can't talk. Wouldn't that be awful? Yes, it would. Okay, let's start out with Luke. All right, I know you probably can't read these, but I'm just trying to prove a little point to you about heroes. Luke Skywalker lives a very simple, humble life on a farm. He's just a boy. He's on his home planet, Tatooine. He works with his aunt and uncle. Okay? Then, Ben Kenobi and R2-D2 show up. Okay, come on now. Here we go. Let's try that. It just doesn't want to stay. I'm sorry to turn my back on you. I'm just going to hold it for right now. Ben Kenobi and R2-D2 call Luke to adventure. Okay? Luke triggers the princess's message on R2-D2, and the girl and the message both intrigue him. Okay? R2-D2 escapes. He wants to go find Ben Kenobi. Luke follows. Okay? And he's saved by Ben. And Ben starts to tell him about his Jedi heritage. And he suggests, come with me. Okay? And we come to the refusal. Okay? Number 3. He tells Kenobi, I can't go. I can take you and the droids as far as Mos Eisley Spaceport, but I can't just up and leave my aunt and uncle. So he's refusing the call. Okay. Luke discovers that there are stormtroopers searching for the droids, and he knows that the stormtroopers will be able to track the droids back to his aunt and uncle's farm. Okay? So he eagerly, rapidly turns back to the farm, and when he gets there, he finds that his aunt and uncle have been murdered, all in the name of the evil empire. Okay? So at that point, he tells his mentor, I'm in, I'm going. Okay? I will avenge their deaths, and he pledges to learn the ways of the Force. And now this is like the departure phase. Now he's really into it. All right, he's on the threshold. Ben Kenobi and the droids hire Han Solo and Chewbacca to transport them off of Tatooine to Alderaan. Okay? Kenobi begins training Luke in the ways of the Force. Okay? He challenges, here we are, tests allies and enemies. He challenges Luke to block the shots of a training remote. At first, using his father's sword, Luke can't do it. And then he gets a helmet with a blast shield on it, and Ben begins to train him in how to, listen to his feelings and use the Force. And he begins to have some success. All right, going to approach the innermost cave. The plan to defeat the Galactic Empire is to bring the Death Star to Alderaan, so Princess Leia's father can take them to the rebellion. When they arrive, the planet is destroyed. They come across the Death Star and they're pulled into the tractor beam, okay? And they are now trapped in the belly of the beast, the Galactic Empire, okay? Now, the ordeal. Kenobi goes off to deactivate the tractor beam, and Luke, Han, and Chewie discover that Princess Leia is also being held on the Death Star. They didn't know that. They rescue her, they escape to the Millennium Falcon, hoping that Kenobi has managed to deactivate the tractor beam so that they can get off that Death Star. Okay? Kenobi sacrifices himself as Luke watches Darth Vader strike Kenobi down. Luke knows he has to then avenge Ben's death and carry on his teachings. Okay? Ben is dead, and Luke has got to do something about it. All right, the reward, seizing the Force. Luke has saved the princess and retrieved the plans for the Death Star. Now they have the knowledge they need to destroy the Empire once and for all. Okay. Number 10, the road back. Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewie, and the droids head to the rebellion base with the Death Star plans. Pursued by TIE fighters, Luke and Han are forced to take action to defend their ship, and they escape with their lives and the plans. Pretty cool. All right, the resurrection. Rebels prepare to take on the Death Star. Luke pilots an X-Wing fighter, and in an epic space battle, I'm hoping you've seen it, Luke is the only pilot who gets within the trenches of the Death Star. Darth Vader and his wingman are in hot pursuit, but just as Darth Vader's about to destroy Luke, Han returns and clears the way for him. Luke uses the Force to guide his aim as he fires upon the only weak spot in the Death Star, destroying it for good. Alrighty. And now, you come to the end of the journey. The return with the elixir. Luke and Han return to the rebellion base, victorious and triumphant. They receive medals for their heroic journey. There is peace throughout the galaxy, at least for now. Take a look at any hero's journey. Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Iron Man, and you will find that this is the journey they take in one way or another. Hi, back again. We just finished taking a look at the hero's journey and took a look at how it applied to Star Wars and Luke and Han and Leia, and whether you believe me or not, the hero's journey, you're going to see it again. Probably your senior year in high school. It's a pretty strong theme, the hero's journey. We have lots of hero's journey books here. Some of them are absolutely hilarious, and we are going to be reading from one of those today. It's actually one of 3 in a series, and they're all The Hero's Guide 2. We could read from The Hero's Guide to Saving Your Kingdom, or The Hero's Guide to Being an Outlaw, but I kind of like The Hero's Guide to Storming the Castle. Now, because you're older, we can read chapter books, but obviously I can't read this entire book. Okay? But you can check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. This is kind of a common thing in writing anymore. Last week we talked about fractured fairy tales, that somebody has kind of taken the information and screwed it all up. If you ever get a chance to watch Rocky and Bullwinkle's fractured fairy tales, take that opportunity. They really are funny. Some of them aren't so funny. But this is a play on the hero's guide, okay? The hero's journey. And you'll see that it's different than what we talked about, but I don't know how far we'll get into this. I'll ask our filmer to give me 30 minutes, if she can, and we'll start, okay? The first chapter, the prologue, is things you don't know about heroes. And we'll talk about heroes tomorrow again. A true hero plays the flute. A true hero always carries an eyebrow comb. A true hero smells faintly of melon. Are any of these things true? It depends on the hero you're talking about, of course. But you can find all these definitions of hero, and many more, in the How to Be a Hero instruction manual being written by one Prince Duncan of the Kingdom of Silveria. Duncan's original title for his book had been The Hero's Guide to Saving Your Kingdom, but he decided that was too specific. So he changed it to The Hero's Guide to Everything in the Whole World. But that was kind of the opposite problem. He eventually settled on The Hero's Guide to Being a Hero. Now, you may be asking yourself, who is this Prince Duncan, and what makes him such an expert on heroes? To which I will respond by saying that perhaps you may have skipped a book on your way to this one. You should probably check on that. But even if you know who Prince Duncan is, you may still be asking yourself, what makes him such an expert on heroes? And that's a very good question. Duncan is a former Prince Charming. Sure, but he's barely more than 5 feet tall, gets distracted by squirrels, and has a tendency to walk into walls. Does that say hero to you? Yeah, me either. Not that any of Duncan's colleagues in the League of Princes would necessarily fit your definition of hero either. Prince Gustav has anger management issues, Prince Liam gets easily flustered by bratty princesses, and Prince Frederick collects fancy spoons and considers dirt his archenemy. And yet the League of Princes did manage to save not 1, but 5 kingdoms from the diabolical plans of an evil witch. Does that make all of them heroes? Duncan certainly thinks so, as evidenced by the introduction to his book. Listen. Hello, I am Prince Duncan of Silveria. You may remember me from bard songs such as The Tale of Snow White or Cinderella and the League of Princes, although that first one never mentions my name and the second is full of factual inaccuracies. For instance, I did not escape the Bandit King by donning a magical ring of flight, as the song suggests. I simply fell off his roof. But at least it gets one thing right. I'm a hero. But did you know there was a time when I didn't even realize I was a hero? It's true. In fact, I thought I was kind of a loser. That's what everyone always told me anyway. But then I joined the League of Princes. And along with my good friends Liam, the one from Sleeping Beauty, Frederick, the one from Cinderella, and Gustav, the one from Rapunzel, I outwitted the trolls, vanquished the giant, tamed the dragon, and destroyed the evil old witch. What's her name? Without even breaking a sweat, because sweat is gross. From The Hero's Guide to Being a Hero by Prince Duncan of Silveria, also known as Prince Charming, the one from Snow White. Admittedly, Duncan's description of events skims over quite a few details, but at least his account is more accurate than the version of the story told in the popular bard song about that episode with the witch, referenced by Duncan above, that initially earned the League its fame. Here's the song. Listen, dear hearts, to his tale most alarming, 'bout a gathering of princes, all formerly charming. 'Twas fair Cinderella who bade them unite, for help with a powerful witch she need fight. The nameless old crone held us bards as her captives, and threatened to silence our melodious octaves. A world without music, that was her aim, but Cinderella would stop her at her wicked game. She knew for this mission the allies she must have, Prince Liam, Prince Frederick, Prince Duncan, and Gustav. No one was a coward who shudders or winces. These were the men of the bold League of Princes. With the maid as their leader, the heroes set off into the dark woods with a grin and a laugh. From Cinderella and the League of Princes by Pennyfeather the Mellifluous, Royal Bard of Harmonia. Hardly any of that is correct. Not that it matters. When Pennyfeather did indeed turn the former Princes Charming into household name heroes with that particular bit of verse, he very quickly went on to embarrass them all with his next story song, aptly titled The Embarrassment of the League of Princes. The celebration for these mighty warriors ended abruptly, and they couldn't be sorrier. For the bandit king, who deserves 40 whacks, had pilfered the League's statue from behind their backs. The bandit had played with these princes like toys, appropriate since he's a 10-year-old boy. From The Embarrassment of the League of Princes by Pennyfeather the Mellifluous. That one's basically true. While the princes were busy touting their victory over the witch, Deeb Robber, the young bandit king, humiliated the team by brazenly stealing their victory monument. The League of Princes dropped out of sight after that. They never officially disbanded, but they all thought it best to stay out of the public eye for a while. Gustav decided to tough it out in Sturmhagen, even while his brothers continued to get credit for his heroic deeds. Duncan nestled back into his woodland estate in Silvaria to work on his book, a choice his wife, Snow White, was quite pleased with. And Liam, still on the run from his wedding, hungry fiancé Briar Rose returned to Harmonia, home of his friend Frederick, and Frederick's fiancée, Ella, also known as Cinderella. But don't worry, it wouldn't be long before the princes reunited and put the fate of the entire world in peril. That's just sort of what they do. It all begins in Harmonia, where one's prince's moment of distraction starts a chain of events that will force the whole league to tackle a perilous quest, a quest during which both lives and pants will be lost. And if you're really worried about whether our heroes will succeed on this mission, you may not want to look at the title of Chapter 28. Part 1, Crashing the Wedding. Title of Chapter 1, A Hero Has Narrow Feet. The path to herohood will be fraught with dangers, risk, and adversity, but it will all be worth it in the end when someone writes a factually incorrect song about you. The Hero's Guide to Being a Hero. Frederick wasn't always helpless. Sure, he'd spent most of his life having his servants cut the crusts off his toast, and he once fainted after merely thinking he had a splinter in his finger. It was really just a biscotti crumb. But then he joined the League of Princes and managed to hold his own against bandits and giants, trolls and witches. And if you had seen him throw himself under a falling stone pillar to save the life of a friend, you would have assumed he'd gotten over his general fear of everything. But only 10 months after that near-death experience, there Frederick was, fleeing madly down the corridors of his own royal palace, squealing like a startled pig. "You can't run forever," his pursuer called out. "I can hear you panting already." "I am aware of that," Frederick wheezed. The pale, slender prince ducked into a corner, squatted behind a large ceramic flower pot, and poked the tip of his sword out from behind a lush, green philodendron. "Aha!" he shouted, peeking between the feathery leaves. "I win!" Prince Liam stopped right before the big ornamental planter, lowered his sword, and shook his head. His long burgundy cape fluttered down behind him. "Frederick," he said, "you know that if this were a real fight, I could easily cut through that shrub and get to you. It's a bush, not an iron shield." "I think the philodendron might technically be a tree, but I concede your point," Frederick said, standing, hiking up the waistband of his gold-trimmed slacks and straightening out the collar of his baby blue velvet jacket, his workout suit. "However, this is not a real fight, and in this particular situation, the philodendron is a perfectly safe place to hide. So I'd say I outwitted you." "No, you didn't," retorted Liam. "You won because you changed the rules. You knew I wouldn't attack the plant because I don't want to hear your father lecturing me about defacing his royal foliage. But in these training exercises, I'm not me. I'm playing a bad guy who wants to hurt you. How will you learn to defend yourself if you don't treat these bouts like real fights?" "He's right, Frederick," said Ella, Prince Frederick's fiancée, and Prince Liam's other sword-fighting pupil, who had raced down the hall to witness the climax of Liam and Frederick's duel. She shook her head. "You weren't even supposed to leave the training room." "But there's nowhere to hide in the training room," Frederick said. "That's the point," Liam and Ella said in unison. They smiled at each other and laughed. "Watch," Ella said to Frederick. "This is what you can learn when you apply yourself." She quickly drew the rapier that hung at her side and leapt at Liam. "Whoa!" Liam sputtered. He was taken off guard, but raised his sword in time to parry Ella's stroke. "Nice speed," he said as he slashed back at her. "Thanks," Ella replied, deftly blocking his strike. Swords clanged as she and Liam traded blows. But Liam was faster. He started to back Ella down the corridor. "Watch that lamp!" Frederick yelled. "My great grandmother made that. Well, bought it. Had a servant buy it, actually." His voice trailed off. Ella was up against the wall, but as Liam swung his sword, she dove under it, sliding across the polished marble floor on her knees and hopping back onto her feet several yards away. "Nice move," Liam said with a raised eyebrow. "I don't think I could get that much distance from a single slide." "Thank the pants," Ella said, gesturing towards her billowy satin trousers. "I made them myself." She cartwheeled toward Liam, her braid of brown hair whipping through the air. Liam leapt up and grabbed onto a chandelier to swing over Ella and avoid her assault. "That's real crystal!" Frederick yelled. Liam dropped down behind Ella. "Boo!" he said. Ella kicked her leg backward into his gut and sent him stumbling against the opposite wall. "Careful with that tapestry," Frederick called out. "It depicts my great-grandmother's servant buying the lamp." "Sorry," Ella said to Liam. "Did I hurt you?" "Ha!" Liam said with a wincing smile. "Good reflexes, though. You've come a long way." Ella straightened the tapestry, plucked a piece of lint from it, and then charged at Liam with a quick barrage of blows, all of which he parried with ease. "A long way, perhaps," he said, "but not all the way." As Ella's energy began to flag, Liam decided it was time for a little showboating. He performed an agile, spinning maneuver, his cape flowing out behind him. Ella grabbed his cape as it fluttered past her and yanked him off balance. He fell to his knees, and Ella, grinning, touched the tip of her sword to his chest. "Looks like I finally beat you," she said. "No fair," Frederick interjected. "Didn't we just establish that he's not Prince Liam right now? He's playing a bad guy. You can't use his cape against him." "A villain can wear a cape," Ella said. "Of course," Liam added. "Plenty of them do." "Who? Nobody we've ever faced," Frederick said. "Are you also going to tell me that villains regularly compliment you the entire time they're trying to kill you, and that they show off with fancy pirouettes in the middle of battle? You cannot honestly say that you were taking that fight seriously just now, Liam. I don't think you're judging me and Ella equally." Ella walked over to Frederick and put her muscular arm around his bony shoulders. "Come on, Frederick," she said playfully. "Don't be jealous." What? Jealous?" Frederick stuttered. "Why would you say that? Jealous of whom?" For months now, Frederick had been trying to ignore the fact that Liam and Ella seemed like an ideal match for each other. They shared all the same interests: monsters, swords, monsters with swords. They shared all the same hobbies: rescuing people, climbing things, doing spontaneous push-ups. They had the same bold and daring spirit. But Ella was supposed to be Frederick's fiancée. She was the Cinderella made beloved by the bard's songs and stories, and Frederick was the Prince Charming who had swept her off her feet at that famous ball. But he was also the man whose life was so dull that Ella had left him in search of some real action. It had been Frederick's quest to reunite with Ella that brought the League of Princes together in the first place. He'd wanted to impress Ella with his heroics. And he succeeded. But on that adventure, he also introduced her to his good friend, Liam. And now both she and Liam lived in the Harmonian Royal Palace with him, neither of them sharing Frederick's interests: artists, crumpets, artists who paint crumpets, or Frederick's hobbies: fancy spoons, poetry, spontaneous embroidery. Still, Frederick wanted Ella to notice him. Of all the women he'd ever met, and there had been dozens lining up to dance with him at the royal ball every year, none but Ella had ever made a real impression. No woman he'd met anywhere had. Well, actually, there was one other, but Frederick didn't know if he'd ever see her again. "I'm just saying you don't need to be jealous of my sword-fighting skills," Ella explained. "I've taken to it quickly, but you'll get better too, I'm sure of it." "I'm not so sure," Frederick said. "Look, I may never become a good duelist, but that's okay. I've been telling you for months. I'm not a sword guy, but that doesn't mean I can't be useful. Wit is my weapon. Words are my ammunition. You yourself helped me to realize that, Liam." "You're absolutely right," Liam said. "No one is better than you are at talking his way out of a fight. But if an enemy doesn't provide you with the opportunity for chit-chat, you need to be able to defend yourself. That's when you let your steel do the talking," Ella said through clenched teeth. Both Frederick and Liam gaped at her. "And to think I was worried when she went out into the woods alone," Frederick said. Liam gave Frederick a pat on the arm. "Come on, let's give it another try," he said. "Look, we've been living like hermits here for almost a year. I'm sure that embarrassment of the League song is a distant memory for most people." "Well, Cook was singing it at breakfast this morning," Frederick said. "I said most people," Liam said. "My point is that it's about time we went out there and started redeeming ourselves. And if you're going to come adventuring with me again, I need to know you can handle yourself in a fight. Swords up!" Liam took a fencing stance and waited for Frederick to do the same. "We should at least go back to the training room," Frederick said. "I think this hallway has probably seen enough action for one day." This was, without doubt, the most excitement ever experienced in that particular corridor. Previously, the most suspenseful thing to have happened there was when two footmen hunted down a lost cufflink. It took them 47 seconds to find it. "You worry too much, Frederick," Liam said. Frederick sighed and lifted his blade. "All right, but I want to state for the record that—" Eek! Liam took several quick swipes at Frederick, and much to everyone's delight, Frederick managed to block them all. He had a giddy smile on his face as he whipped his sword back and forth to knock away each of his friend's attacks, and then his father showed up. "What on earth is going on here?" King Wilberforce barked as he strode down the hallway. The sound of that deep baritone voice completely broke Frederick's concentration. "Father," he blurted, and turned his head at just the wrong moment. The tip of Liam's blade sliced across Frederick's cheek. Frederick yelped, dropped his weapon, and brought his hand up to cover the wound. "I'm so sorry," Liam gasped. "Are you okay?" Ella called, running to her fiancé. The king marched up to them in a fury, dozens of medals jingling on his chest with every stomping footstep. "What have you done to my son?" "It was an accident," Liam sputtered. "It's just a scratch, Father," Frederick said. He checked his fingertips, relieved to see only the slightest dot of red. If there had been any more blood, he would likely have lost his composure, which he did not want to do in his father's presence. "And frankly, it would never have happened if you hadn't yelled and distracted me." "What did I do to deserve such disrespect?" King Wilberforce said, sounding appalled. "I, ruler of this realm, see my only son being assaulted by some hooligan and demand that the violence come to a stop. For this, I deserve scorn?" "Some hooligan, Father?" Frederick asked. "Liam's been living with us for almost a year." "I know who he is," the king said with disdain. "A supposed Prince Charming in exile from his own people, hated the world over because of the horrid manner in which he treated his sleeping beauty. A man to whom I have, against my best instincts, offered nothing but hospitality, and a hooligan who repays my kindness by filleting my son." "Your Highness," Liam said, "I appreciate all the kindness you've offered me, and as I've tried to explain before, the rumors about me and Briar Rose are untrue. She spread those lies to get back at me because I refused to marry her. And surely you know I never meant to hurt Frederick. I was merely—" "Oh, I know you probably didn't intend to hurt him," Wilberforce said. "But that's the problem with you. You think Frederick can do things that he simply cannot do. Putting my son in harm's way appears to be a hobby for you. Are you going to deny that you almost got Frederick killed in that whole unfortunate witch fiasco?" Liam said nothing, nor did Frederick, who, if he were a turtle, would have slipped happily into his shell at that moment. The king looked down his nose at the three friends. "There will be no more sword play within these walls," he stated, "or anywhere on palace grounds for that matter." "But, father," Frederick began. "Sir," Liam stepped in, "Frederick is getting quite—" he couldn't bring himself to say the word good. "Well, he's improving. With more training he could—" "There will be no more training." Wilberforce snapped. His perfectly groomed mustache quivered as he spoke, and a fleck of saliva hit a purple silk ribbon on his chest, leaving a tiny wet spot the likes of which no one had ever before seen on any king of Harmonia. We'll stop there and go on another time. Hope you have a good day.